Hey race fans, and welcome back to another episode of Legends with Linds. This week's episode is going to look a little bit different, and it's definitely a surprise episode to my legend. So this week I'll be covering someone who definitely has paved a pretty awesome path in racing and done a lot of really neat things with racing. I am going to be covering Mr. Nostalgia and the Wizard. So I would say that the Holt family racing definitely goes way back to my great-grandpa, Richard Holt, who originally had the number 98 car. And also my grandpa Ron raced the 98 car. And as we all know, Mr. Nostalgia definitely has raced that 98 car. And also my Uncle Ben, or the Wizard, as you guys know him. So I am doing this I was trying to do it as a surprise for both of them, but I needed to gather some more information on before I was even born. And so thank you to my Uncle Ben for giving me a lot of valuable information. Also, my Grandpa Ron definitely helped out with giving me some good information on the Holt family racing. So a few things that I didn't even know, which I think are really cool, that my uncle shared with me, was Ben and Mark actually shared a car because they didn't have money to both individually have a car. So what they did was, in the late 80s, early 90s is when they kicked off their racing career. They had a 76 Oldsmobile, the number 98. One of them would run the heat and one would run the feature. So I think that's such a cool thing that, you know, racing has always been a family affair. I remember when I was growing up, my grandpa in the garage, my dad in the garage, cousins running around as kids on trailers and jumping around while they worked on cars, you know, moving my dad's tools around and getting yelled at. So they shared their cars. In the late 80s, early 90s, around then, they bought a Camaro. And it was outlawed the same year that they bought it. When they got it all ready to go, they had asked the track if they could race this car before they bought it. They told them that they could. They got it all ready to go, and then that same year they outlawed that race car, the Camaros, and they never actually even got to race it. So it's safe to say that our trials and tribulations definitely have been forever in this. You know, I asked my uncle, what's something that you would like me to put into this podcast? You know, what's something that you would want everybody to know? And, you know, he said, you know, we've never had a lot of money, but we've always made it happen, and we've made do, and we go out and we have a good time. And, you know, I think that's one of the most important things that people lose sight of with racing is how much it can either bring people together or it can tear them apart. You know, I remember my dad and my uncle definitely getting into it a lot over racing or the different cars over the years. I definitely can see, if you look back, like on the Nostalgia Dirt Series page, there's been two main factors that have always been there, and it has been my dad Mark and my Uncle Ben. They've always had this goal and vision, and they've made it happen since the beginning. You know, a lot of people have come and go in this: family, friends, employees, but those are the two that I feel like that definitely have withheld all the struggles and the hardships, and definitely strive and see the goal and the vision to keep racing history alive. And I think that those two play such an important role in the racing community that not a lot of people see. And I may be a little bit biased, you know, being the daughter and the niece, but that's okay. So in competition, my dad would win 2 or 3 races in a row. And I was talking to Uncle Ben about it, and he said, you know, I didn't really kick off winning until I started racing vintage, you know, and he said I've won at least 7 heats and 15 features and in vintage racing. And my dad has won at least 10 features with vintage racing. So, you can tell that with my family, my uncle says, I hear him all the time say, I'm just out there to have fun. I want to go out and I want to have fun. My dad, on the other hand, is polar opposite. He drove the house car last, and that's when he decided it was a good beginner car for me, which means slow. He is very competitive in his nature, and he wants to go out there and have fun, but also run with the pack, and he wants to win, and that's definitely something I've always seen in my dad as a competitive side for sure. So a few key things that I can remember about my dad and my uncle's racing career. When I was little, my dad was racing in Brit. He was racing B mods when those first became a thing. He rolled his car, fractured his tailbone, and had to be ambulanced to the Brit hospital. And I remember getting in the car with my mom, my grandma, my brothers, and everybody was hysterical. I really didn't know what was going on. I just knew my dad got into an accident and was in an ambulance. So fast forward to when we got to the hospital, my dad's laying there in a hospital bed in his racing suit. I was really scared. I've been a daddy's girl since forever. And I went up and I remember touching my dad's hand. And if you know my dad doesn't take too much seriously. And so he jumped and said, ow. And I just remember and then he smiled at me. And, a lot of people make fun of my dad's crooked teeth or his smile, but my dad's smile just makes me feel so much better. And my dad's smile just makes me happy and lights me up. So one thing that my grandpa Ron actually pointed out about my dad is, from the beginning, he's always been, when he was a young racer, he always talked to the older, more experienced racers. And he was always really interested in their racing, and he would learn, their techniques, their controls with their cars. And my grandpa said that he could always tell that there was something more with my dad with racing than just getting behind the wheel. My dad wanted to know the ins and outs of the drivers, their thought process, the way they raced. He actually worked with my brother Brandon, who was track champion in the sport compact. I remember going out to the track and watching my brother race, and he ended up, like I said, being track champion. And when he got the trophy, it stood taller than him. Racing's definitely been in my family's blood for a lot of generations, and I'm really thankful that all of my brother's kids, my kids, they're gonna be the next generation, and we're gonna make sure that they're, even if they don't drive the cars, my kids are in the shop. They want rides with grandpa. They want to go to the races. My kids are very interested in racing, which I'm very thankful for. So, not only has the Wizard and Mr. Nostalgia been on the track, they've also done promoting. They've done flagging. They've done announcing. They've always found a way to compete. So I talked to my mom, who is my dad's ex-wife, and asked her, do you remember anything that you think dad would put in this? And surprisingly, it was a nice response coming from an ex-wife. She just said that there was always family in the garage putting the cars together. They work countless hours to prepare for this. And I'm sure anybody that does racing can vouch for this, and saying that, it's a job going out there on that track. And I remember one of my legends, Mike Hanna, stating that, racing is the smallest part of it going out on the track. It's all about getting ready. And I feel like when you have your family by your side helping you do all this, not only you're getting the job done, but also you're building those memories. I'm sure my dad didn't know, or my uncle didn't know, that they were building core memories for us kids, playing out on their trailers at the track, being down in the pits, or even in the grandstands with my mom and my grandma. It really, racing has done so much for my family that I just can't stress enough. Even if you don't, if you're new to racing, go out to your local track and watch the races and take your kids, because watching my kids out there just brought back all these memories for me of how. Interesting fact is, so on the same turn in Britt that my dad got in his accident, my Uncle Ben was also driving a B-Mod. He rolled his car and his thumb got caught in the wheel, and he, when he came to in the cornfield, his thumb was actually touching his wrist. So it's safe to say that whatever turn that is in Britt, the whole family should probably steer clear of that one. Say for Mr. Nostalgia and the Wizard that, you know, it's more than just racing. This is family memories. It's quality time. It's all the hard work that goes into it, just watching it pay off, seeing them go around the track. You know, even when their cars don't work, have each other's backs, and it makes it happen. It really does. And for the Holts, I know we haven't always had the fancy equipment or the fancy cars or the championships, you know, but we've always had each other. We've always been there. My dad and uncle have always been a really great team, and I just am very proud of my Holt family racing legacy. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Legends with Linds and Mr. Nostalgia and the Wizard. I hope this was a pleasant surprise for you. I've been telling my dad all week that I don't really know who I'm going to do for my Legends and this week's episode, and kind of seemed to made it look like I was pretty disinterested in it, planning this without him knowing. Hopefully you're not too mad at me, Dad. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Legends with Linds. And I hope that you give your local track a chance. Go out there, take your kids, take your family, get some unhealthy concession food. It's only for one night. Get some dirt in your eyes. It'll be fun. It'll be worth it. So I'll see you at the track.